Abstraction is a very important concept to me, and always has been. I do love figurative art, but for me, and I think maybe because I grew up only seeing figurative art, and there was just so, it seems oftentimes you see one thing, that's it, that's what you get, the meaning is made. And with abstraction, I just think there's so much room for meaning making to happen in the mind of the viewer. And I find that all the time in my own work. Like I may have a story I'm telling as I'm making something, telling to myself or hoping to portray in the work. And then I have all these people come up to me and find something either subtly or quite different. And I love that. I love that not everybody is going to come away from my work with the exact same story. And that's just important to me, and one of the reasons why I really love abstraction. I think it's just so important. I work and have since the beginning of my art career with waxed cloth. It's post-industrial waste, post-manufacturing waste. And my process is pretty labor-intensive of sewing forms with those scraps, then dipping them in wax, burning them repeatedly. It's a multi-step process of dipping and burning these pieces. And then after these plethora of pieces are created, I put them together generally with some sort of crude hardware like nuts and bolts, or recently I've been using a lot of hog rings, which are the same kinds of little clips that you would tag into a livestock animal's ear, pigs or cows, to identify them in some way. And then they form a larger field that's in which texture and repetition is very key to the compositions. I had a residency a few years ago at Glean, which is where artists get to go and spend 5 months collecting things from the Portland Metro transfer station. So I was working directly with junk and found materials and trash and reclaiming that, and I like to transform it. So again, you don't even know that it is trash. You might not at first glance know that it's from a found material. I really think I started using found objects just because I've always been someone to react to what's around me. And I think that's just in my history, growing up with my dad, who repurposed so many things and used them in ways that maybe wasn't their original intention, but changed them around to make them into some other functional thing. That was always, I think, deep inside my head as I make things. So I just love the idea of working with trash, something that somebody else has deemed unworthy or useless, and to find yet a further function in it. The work I'm making in my studio right now is not that different from the same work I've been making for a while. I like to make these pieces that are maybe simple at the first viewing, and it's only upon a deeper look that you gain, you see there's more than you just meet on the surface, which I think on the surface is often just this beautiful texture that people are compelled to look at. Some of the things I do in my making, then I think push it into a little more complicated place in some of the ways where I emphasize broken parts, that this has been broken apart and put back together, or this is constructed of many pieces that look almost the same, but actually they're a little bit different if you spend the time and care to look at them a closer bit. Or perhaps because I've cobbled these things together with some baling wire or some hog rings, it throws in this other question, like, why is that there? Why is that holding it together rather than something that you don't see? So I like to make works that show these obvious repairs or fixes, because something that's been broken isn't gone. And then in the making, some accident will happen, like I'll realize, oh, I counted wrong, or I cut that one too short. But I actually love those things when they happen, because then there's this little bit of energy that goes beyond my plan. And I often find that makes my work better. So I do try to embrace those sorts of mistakes. I don't think calling them mistakes is always complimentary, but I'm okay with saying mistake. I am a classic late bloomer artist. I have always been a maker, but it's been a maker of practical things. And I think this comes from having grown up really just never being around artists. I was around a lot of people who were making things, but they were all functional things. And that was how I actually started making art, was through the gateway drug of functional ceramics. And then when I was in my early 40s, I actually went back to art school just because I felt like I needed this underpinning foundation. Even though I was a maker, I didn't call myself an artist. I just didn't feel like I had that. So it was going to art school that really allowed me to do that, and just for my career to take off in a way where I felt like I knew what I was doing. I not knew what I was doing, I knew why I was doing it, and that was helpful. Some of the techniques I use, which are repetitive ways of putting something together, I think of them, maybe you could relate that to like basket weaving, which is multiple repetitive processes, or beading something. So in those ways, I think you can look at the work and see that, yes, some of these things that I saw all the time, well, I didn't really see all the time, but the few museums I ever went to as a kid, these were the things I would see, would be beading, baskets, things from Cherokee history. Sewing seeds and valuables into the hems of your garments. And Cherokee women sewed seeds for next year's crop into their hems as they were going to Oklahoma or being removed to Oklahoma. So I've been trying to do a project about that for quite some time now, and I've had a lot of failures. I've done a bunch of experiments, and I haven't felt good about where it's gone yet. So I made some more paper, and I've dyed it with walnut dye, and I put some wax on it, so there's this really great transparency to it. So I'm still experimenting with that, and I really want those to be then sewn together in a big screen that then these projections go onto of some video stuff I'm working on, or hoping to work on. I have my friends and community here in Portland, my community of artists, which I will have to say during the years that we've been in COVID and more stuck off to ourselves, I have really missed that community of getting together. I still get together with people, but even those big scenes where we all profess to hate them, where it's a big opening, too many people. I actually miss that. I really miss even seeing people in those openings and events. So that community is important to me. Outside that, the bigger Native community, which I am involved in just through Cherokee Nation and on the internet with other people and friends of other tribes, that's important to me. And networking, I make a lot of work that's about networking. Like that's who we are, who we know, who we associate with. I think that makes us who we are.